Okay, let's talk about digitalization of education now that we're in an education conversation. We're joined by two guests. They have experience from Estonia. Anni Sild is the CEO of BCS Digital Skills Academy. Good morning, Anni.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Antti Rammo is the founder and CEO of Star Cloud LLC. Antti, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
It's great to be here.
That right there, Antti, is the hot seat.
Yes, I see a lot of buttons in front of me, so I try to hold back.
To welcome you into this conversation, CT has the day's proverb.
Yes, and our proverbs for the whole of this week ending tomorrow are from the Republic of Namibia. A beautiful country. Envy and green grow from the same stalk.
Envy and green grow from the same stalk. Antti, when you hear this proverb, what do you think it says?
I think it says something like that the beautiful things and life is something that is both something that is desirable, but there is also a choice of envy that might come with it, or even some natural reaction towards beauty and life that also come with it. So it's something like that.
Anni, what's your interpretation?
Yeah, my thoughts go towards it's actually what you make out of it. It doesn't matter where you come from, but it's your own actions maybe that get you where you will be at the end or with your future.
Interesting.
Absolutely, isn't it? You know, the beauty of interpretation, especially when you asked for your opinion, you can't possibly be wrong, because that is your interpretation, and that is good, and so it is correct.
Yes.
And thank you.
And thank you for this really, really good proverb.
You're welcome.
You two are here so that we can get some perspectives of what you do and also what happens in your country, Estonia. We've hosted a former president of your country, and we've had conversations with even other Estonians on the digitization journey for Estonia. Many of the services in Estonia are digitized, government services and other services. That makes Estonia one of the most connected communities, right, in terms of accessing services from government and all. And then we come into our education system, and there's been a conversation about getting our education system in digital platforms and a way. So let's begin with, in terms of education, how is education accessed and used in Estonia? Are children going to school with laptops, with tablets? Do they learn from home? Is there like homeschooling, just a teacher in school, and wherever you are, we just log on at 8 a.m. and is math paper 1 or subject math 1? What happens?
So maybe I can start a bit, and you can complement if something comes up. Well, I think it's more about schools are actually quite independent in their decision on how they implement specifically technology and tablets and so on. But it's more like the general background that is very digital. So when a child goes to school, they are already also digitally become as an identity for the school and the whole education system. So it begins already when the children are joining the schools. This means that each and every child has a digital identity that is connected to the school, and all school work that happens, whether it's homework, whether it's attendance, is digitally, the information is digitally available all the time. And how then the children use, for example, digital learning materials, whether they are doing it at home or at school, it really depends on the teacher and what works for the specific learning activities. But the main thing is that the schools are well equipped with the digital infrastructure, so they are free to make choices on how to implement the technology. So I would say this is maybe the...
Let's start a little bit back. Let's start with this digital identity. What is a digital identity?
So in Estonia, every person has a digital identity.
Okay.
So we can be identified with digital means. So this also makes possible to vote digitally for parliament, for example.
How do I, let's take an example. Here I am, full-bodied, ancient, old African. How do I get myself to be digitally identified? Because you don't have to look at me to know that I exist. You can see me, okay? Now, the digital form of it, what does it look like? How do I become digitally recognizable?
Maybe Anni want to explain, or I can try.
Well, basically, I think it all starts when you are born in Estonia. You get the personal ID code, and you will be automatically put in the system. And if Antti was talking about the digital identity in schools, for the pupils or the learners, it means that they have an email address with the school's domain, and with this they have kind of access to all the resources, all the platforms that the school uses. And without that, we have had schools and in the past this situation as well. It is really difficult to organize the digital learning if you're not in the kind of
so when someone is born, they're given a code. So, and it is unique to you. It is yours.
Well, I think it's same in Kenya or in any other country, that each individual who is a citizen of this country has a identity code, basically. Yeah. So yes, it is in some register. In our case, we have, let's say, this agreement and trust in the digital technology in such a way that we also trust the digital identities that we have. And we use those identities for different government services to identify people in different scenarios, and education is just one of those, but also healthcare and all kinds of different government services for voting and so on, for social services. We use the same basically digital identity to say that this person has this and this right or this and this service available. So it's just something that is agreed in the society, that this is something we use and we trust.
Is there a document within which that identity is carried? I'm looking, let me give you an example of what I mean. This is my identity card.
An ID.
Yes, we have the same. I can show what mine looks like. It's pretty much the same.
Yes.
So it is this one.
Yes.
But this identity can also be not only on this card, but I can identify myself what we call mobile ID. So the same convention of this identity can be used on my mobile device as well, because I have a unique code that I know only myself, and I can identify myself through this PIN or this password.
And this is within a system within government, so that when I want government services, for instance, if I present this card, they will automatically know all these things about me.
Yes, basically yes. But I don't even have to have this card. I can ID myself with my what we call the mobile ID. So, and this is trusted as well as this card itself. And I'm able to vote, for example, choose a parliament member, thanks to having this ID.
So, what has it allowed life to become? And this is the question here. As you get into the point where you're born and you have this digital ID, right? And getting into education, obviously, from a child, what age do children start school in Estonia? 7 years old,
8, yeah.
Right? So what does it then allow children to do? Let's look at the education from an education perspective. How has it changed, or how has it made the education experience more seamless, or what are some things that have been realized as a result of having this identification?
Yeah, I think this identification is a very important start to having this very efficient way of administrating the pupils, the education system, and you know, wider areas of society as well. But in education specifically, it's 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 easier to explain from the parent point of view, for example. It becomes a communication platform between home and school, for example. You have very transparent way of teaching and learning and getting information about what is happening in school. And for example, when the child changes the school, goes to another school, you will still have this level of service of communication and transparency that you have at any other school, for example. Even when, for example, those information systems that the schools use are different, but the basis, the way of identification, of sharing information, of access is the same. So I, as a citizen or as a parent or as a child, have this, let's say, some basic level of quality of service and transparency and access and efficiency in the system all the time. So I guess this is the main benefit if we look at it from the very global
those layers
perspective.
So, for example, your company, StarCloud LLC, what does it do? And how does it play into this conversation that we're talking about?
Yes, because it's a good question, because those questions you have asked so far are quite complex in terms of, let's say, infrastructure and building these identity systems. And our service, StarCloud, relies a lot on this kind of infrastructure to be there. So what we do is we provide schools with digital learning environment, with digital learning materials, and this environment enables pupils, teachers to access high quality learning content and use it in a digital environment, whether it happens in school or it happens at home. They always have an access to high quality learning content, high quality learning environment. So, for example, when school closes down, it has not so much effect on their learning quality than it would have in other way.
What's this content? Who puts it there? Who vets it?
The content is, I would say, in schools, it's crucial. We know that how important are textbooks in school in assuring the quality of education. And what we do, we work with educational publishers, local educational publishers, who provide learning materials to this environment. And in Kenya's case, we work with Kenyan educational publishers because the content needs to be aligned with the local curricula. So the school has the assurance of quality of content, the assurance of alignment to the curricula. So even when using digital materials, the same goals, the same learning outcomes should be achieved what the curricula in this specific country stands for. So this is what we...
Okay. So once the content is on a digital platform, and this then comes to you, Anni, then we're talking about the tutors being able to access it and the learners being able to access it, and the tutor can then teach the learner, not necessarily having to use a textbook, but accessing information from this digital space. Let's say it's stored somewhere on a cloud. So what's innovative about that, Anni?
I think it's more a question to Antti.
Yeah, I will be gladly answer this. I think there is a lot, but we need to always remember that why school is there in the first place. Why we go to school? Why we need to deliver education to our generation that comes after us. And the digital services that we create and the content that we make available, and this goes the same way for this, let's say, more what we talked about, these identity systems. They serve always the same purpose, or at least they should. And in education terms, this means that we want our children or the generation that comes after us to have certain knowledge, certain skills, certain views that they could use in their life and to build the society. So the digital service has exactly those same goals. However, when we try to compare, okay, what is the added value that the digital brings, then there is so many of those points you can bring out. For example, the level of access to knowledge and education is far greater in digital forms than it is in any analog format. Imagine a simple example. A book you must carry in your bag to reach the text, to reach the exercise, to reach the learning activity. With a digital material, it's always with you, wherever you are. And you have endless amounts. You can never fit so many books in a bag that you can fit in a cloud. This is one of the most obvious aspects, of course. But let's go forward from there. The digital space, we already say that we identify ourselves before we get into any digital environment, which means it's already personal. The system knows it is Antti who is logging in, which means that we are able to make these learning activities and the materials very personal to this user. And this raises the efficiency of acquiring knowledge of your education journey, because it is more relevant to you personally. And this is how we are able to fulfill the potential of each child, of each school more efficiently. So what we want from the digital services is just the same things, in a way, what we have wanted all the time from the education system, but we can be more efficient with it, more personal.
Okay, let's get to the brass tacks. Now tell me, what does a typical Estonian classroom look like?
Yes, I want to bring it to the ground. Like in Estonia, we still have classrooms. We have teachers. They actually exist. We have students sitting in a classroom. They usually don't carry a personal tablet or computer to the school. There are computer labs in the school, same as here.
We don't have computer labs in our schools. The majority of our schools don't have. But let's go on with the conversation. Yes.
They have the schools have tablets, like tablets that you can move around from classroom to classroom. They do some tasks online, but they also do very much socializing with textbooks, work with textbooks. I can give you a really practical example. We were on holidays with our family just a few weeks ago. It wasn't a school holiday, but the school is really okay that my child studies 2 weeks somewhere else. She gets all the learning content from the cloud, the digitalized system. She's able to communicate with the teachers. They are really, active in response. She's able to do some assessments online. But as Antti said, it's the schools have the option to choose. And of course, there are some schools with whom it's not okay that the student just, goes away for 2 weeks and then returns.
Yeah, I think if to summarize with any technology, it's not, in most cases, it's not that the technology comes and fully replaces whatever has there been before. It builds on top. And then there becomes this variety and raised efficiency. And then time will decide, and the personal choices will decide what of those technologies and ways of working will be the most prevalent, or how this, let's say, puzzle comes together. So it's not either this or that. It's most of the time it is the variety and then these personal preferences that decide how the technology is used.
First of all, as we were preparing for this conversation, we kept, having a debate: digitization versus digitalization. Which is which, Anni?
And what does each mean?
Well, we know that the terms is an awful subject because everyone mixes them up, and that's why I think it's not very important to stuck or get stuck in them. But to my mind, digitization is, for example, if we take the textbooks, if we just rewrite them in a digital format and don't do anything with our other processes, other things that we do, and we use it the same way as we did the original textbooks. For me, this is digitization. Digitalization, sorry, is if we then change something and we get more out of the digital format. We use different ways of assessment. We access them differently. The teachers do something different. This is my interpretation.
Okay. Your company, Digital Skills Academy, what does it do?
Yes, so we are focusing on the skills part. If we were talking about the e-governance system, or Antti was talking about the learning content, in order for this to work, you need the people to have the right skills. If you just buy devices or build the infrastructure and the people don't know how to use it, it's pointless. So we have been in digital skills development over 30 years now. Nowadays we're mostly in adult learning. We also, the target group for us is also teachers. And here in Kenya, we have the pleasure to be working together with the private schools, Kenyan Private Schools Association, in terms of, or with figuring out together what would be the next steps in the digital roadmap for private schools.
What does that training involve? When you say you're training teachers, okay, you must have a curriculum for training teachers.
Yes, we have many curriculums.
Good. Why are there many curriculums?
Nowadays, people want to learn what they need at that time. In Estonia, anyway, they are not very much, if we're talking about working people, they're not very much into long curriculums. They have a task they need to fulfill at work. So, okay, and I have an obstacle. I don't have the skills. So they go after training for, 2 hours. Maybe they even watch a 5-minute video to get past this obstacle. So we really are trying to figure out what's the problem of the teachers or any other target group we're dealing with, and then give them the exact skills that they need at that time.
So the skill is for the teacher to understand how the system works. And also how to ensure that it helps them in the functions of teaching. Absolutely,
yes. Even yesterday, when we were at Lily's Academy, we had a training for the KPSA schools leaders and ICT teachers. And Antti was doing his presentation. One of the participants pointed out that, okay, but we have the system, but what about the skills? So to actually leverage any kind of digital system, you need to have the skills with it, and enable to get most out of the system.
See, here we now get to subject teachers, because a school curriculum has many subjects. Now you mentioned ICT teachers. I assume that the teachers were involved with the department in school that deals with ICT. But now, when you talk about digitalizing, everyone has to understand how these systems work, because before this, it's only the ICT department that were concerned with ICT matters. But now, everyone has to understand it. How do you transition all this so that it fits in with the subjects that are taught in the schools?
Exactly, you make a very good point. And we always, or now more often, ask, what is ICT or what is not ICT? If we talk about, for example, accountants, is their work related to ICT or not? Or
it is.
It is. So basically we can say this to every topic. In Estonia, ICT skills are taught horizontally in every subject. So if we talk about mathematics or sciences, or this teacher is responsible for giving the skills of ICT in this field as well.
Okay. Do you see, because I think a lot of times when we think about the, mechanics of doing all of this without looking at how it has actually affected output, then sometimes it's difficult to then see the benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. A good point.
Yeah. So how do we see that it has actually affected the delivery of a quality education by going into the digital sphere?
I think it's for the teacher, for example, if the question was about how, let's say, a biology or social studies teacher will, what kind of attitude he or she will have towards this new technology and how you kind of argument the benefit of it. So it has to be, of course, there are these basic digital skills and some basic attitudes towards trying out new things and technology for that matter. But most importantly, the subject teacher needs to have the feeling that the teaching of this specific subject that they love or what they are professional in will benefit. So you see more, let's say, spark in the eyes of the pupils. You will have your workflows that will be more efficient. You will spend less time on work that is a big part of the teacher's work that is not tied to the subject, making assessments or putting in some reports or whatever. So this is a possibility for the teacher to really engage more with the teaching activity and the subject as such. So if the person understands that those technologies will enable this, so by like a miracle I have, let's say, 1 hour more of time in my day, in each of my day, imagine how much this affects your life. And if you manage to communicate that and prove that this is very realistic goal for you after obtaining these skills that takes you maybe a day or two, maybe a week, and the whole life will change. And it's not only yourself, but all of your students as well. So the effect is really, really big, actually.
But it's still the fact that before you come to the situation that Antti just described, you will have the frustration. It will take you longer to, get to know these things, and it's very normal. And some of the teachers in Estonia are still going through that phase. But you can't reach the the perfect picture.
I think there is a really important part here also, that this is something that we do collectively. It's not one person in school having the taking the journey alone, trying to go through all these obstacles. It's something we do together, we learn together, we do it collectively. And then it will be even bigger effect. So I guess that's also how it's done in Estonia, that it's a really collective effort.
And there is a position in Estonian schools called educational technologist. And this is what we actually see would very much benefit Kenyan schools as well. Educational technologist is someone who drives the going digital thing. They support the teachers in choosing the tools, in accepting the situation, dealing with all the maybe technical aspects of it. And this is kind of the support system that schools generally provide to the teachers.
I'm hearing something that's holistic and global when it comes to Estonia. So let me just give you a situation in Kenya. Tell me what is similar and what is dissimilar with what you have in Estonia. So in Kenya, of course, we have the Ministry of Education, we have the Kenya Institute for Curriculum Development, and we've got the schools, public, private schools. We have the learners. We have teachers who are employed by the government through the Teacher Service Commission. We have textbooks that are approved by the Ministry of Education and KICD for use in schools. So we already have a curriculum and we have content designed, and teachers know this is the content and this is how you pass on the information to the learners. Then we have very many startups on the digital space that are there to try and to digitize the content and make it available to learners in various ways. Some have this innovation of, we are able to give you access to not only the prescribed textbook learning material, but also other interactive learning material for students. So various models of accessing it, whether you're paying monthly, whether you're paying this and the other. Okay, so various startups playing in this space, but not one that is harmonized from top at the ministry and said, so these are the textbooks, this is the digital journey, and this is how you shall access it. We also have, the whole process of trying to make sure that all schools have access and all learners have access to digital devices. It's an ongoing process. Hasn't reached where it ought to have reached. So, this is Kenya. Now, tell us, in Estonia, how is it? Start from the ministry.
I think, first of all, Estonia is a much smaller society, a lot less territory, a lot less people. So this already affects if you have a policy or if you have some program or whatever, this already affects this capacity to make changes. However, I think in large part what I see in Kenya, that there is a curriculum, there is a more strict approval process to the learning content that comes from KICD. Yeah. But this is where, let's say, the biggest difference seems to be in terms of learning content or the structure of it. There is a variety of publishers, there is a lot of choice for the schools, and in addition to the orange list, the schools have a lot of freedom to choose the learning materials they want to use. So this is quite similar. However, our school system is very, how you say in English, the level of the schools in terms of learning outcomes, learning environment as such is very, it's the same across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter if you go to a city school, which school you go.
Okay.
It is very common. You get basically 95% of the same level of education.
Mm-hmm.
And we do not have such private school sector.
Mm-hmm.
It's only, I might be mistaken, but it's maximum 10%, or even if that, it can be a lot less. So most of the schools are state funded and state owned schools.
So essentially, what you're saying is that it doesn't matter where you are, infrastructure, teaching, learning, understanding is going to be replicated in the same manner. It doesn't matter where in the country you are. So there's a standard that's applied across board. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the standard is, of course, the curricula, and the schools have a lot of freedom on how they will transfer this curricula or to deliver it. But the funding of the schools and providing the schools with the infrastructure, the school environment is very, very similar across the board. And it's kind of, for the parent, it's very easy to select the school that is closest, and you can be sure that it has
quality will be the same.
Yes, it's the same.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to then putting material on the digital platform, is it a government policy that you will have access to textbooks and the same material plus more on digital?
Yes, it is a government policy.
And the government provides the infrastructure for that as well.
In regards of infrastructure from the school perspective, well, it's I don't know, maybe you can explain this a bit better, because schools have a lot of responsibility of their own, but some basic connections, some basic level of infrastructure is centrally provided. But historically, how has it been developing? We can say quite with confidence that all schools are connected, but there is differences in if the school can, for example, purchase these tablets or have fully digital materials for all children. Then this depends on the budget of the municipality who provides for the schools.
Let me just pause. Municipalities have come in. Municipalities are part of government.
Municipalities.
Or how is it how is Estonia constituted? You have a national government. Okay. Then from the national government, do you have municipalities, towns? We have counties? What do you have?
We have municipalities.
And who funds municipalities?
The taxpayer in the municipality and then the government.
So government gives it some money. The locals who live there give it some money.
Yes.
What's the percentage?
To be honest, I can't
You don't
say.
know, but-
Yes, I don't know.
Right.
But in the case of schools, the government provides, we have per each, if we talk about learning materials, for example, each student, we have this, what we call head money.
We call it capitation here.
And then it's per each pupil that the government provides for the municipality for their pupils.
Is it the same amount?
It's the same amount across, and even if you are a private school, you also get the same amount.
So it means if that is the same amount and it's meant for what? Learning materials?
For learning content.
Exactly. So it means every school in Estonia has, or every student who wants to learn in any school in Estonia has the same opportunity and the same.
Yes, the basic
Yes.
is the same. Yes.
Okay, now the infrastructure bit. Who pays for it? Is it the government, the municipality?
It's also a bit of mixture. So some things are centrally developed. There is a lot of course, we have used a lot of European funds to build infrastructure. Then the municipalities are different in their approach and their budgetary possibilities to invest into this infrastructure. So there is variety there. So it's not all 100% the same, but let's say some basics are equal across the board.
So municipalities that are able to raise more money will have more money at their disposal to do more things for the students.
Yes, that's
But the
right.
basics are the same.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
Let me come back to Kenya. This process that we're talking about, digitalizing, for how long has it been happening in Kenya?
Well, I'm certain it has been happening many years before we came here with
Yes.
our company and our services, but I'm not sure. You probably know
I know.
it better.
It started in 2020. Okay? And I am aware that we have digitalized books that are already in place for use. There are around 119 of those books that I know. Now, how do we ensure that the students access these books?
And it's a huge challenge on your education system because there is so much of students. The schools are very different. The territory is large. So these challenges are very diverse. So first of all, in order to access the learning content, or the school for that matter that has a digital, let's say, that is available also digitally, you need connection. You need to think of ways how you are able to connect the learners, the teachers to this infrastructure. So, and I think it is actually a huge opportunity to raise the accessibility of the education itself, because it's much harder in a long term to carry physical objects, books around a big territory than to have a good connectivity and everybody can access on the same level these digital services.
Okay.
With the current project that we are doing with Kenyan private schools, we have been discussing, and the main goal or outcome of the project that we are running is to figure out the very specific project ideas, like step 1, 2, that will get you to the next level. And what we have found out to be the key point is that the schools need to come together. And of course we are very much talking about connectivity and devices, that the schools need to have devices, but they are expensive. So just an example to give you, if all the schools or maybe private schools come together and make a big purchase together, they will get 3, 5, 10 times lower prices than they would get doing it school by school. So just an example that schools need to, we have figured out that schools need to come together in order to reach the next...
But that's where the association comes in, isn't it? Because if you have a private schools association, there will be a parent body who can coordinate the activities that you're saying. And
Exactly.
even the government schools have an association. So the key then, if you were to work with the government, as you work with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, would be to also work with the association that deals with government schools.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
Have you dealt with, or have you had contact with the association that deals with government schools?
Not yet directly,
Not yet directly.
yes.
Okay.
But we have had contacts with, of course, private schools, public schools, so to understand what are the challenges, what are the differences. So this process is, of course, ongoing.
See, why we asked at the beginning the role that the Ministry of Education plays in all this, because once the Ministry of Education has onboarded and has accepted this is a process that they're working with, and you work with publishers, and these publishers publish books that are used in both private and public schools, then the association that deals with the public schools would make your life easier, because they know their members, they can get in touch with their members easier, and whatever information that is required or needed to be passed along, they would do it a lot easier.
I absolutely agree. Yes, this is how it works. This collective effort makes it possible to make the change.
And it's very interesting what you said about parents. We have figured out that parents play a really big role in Kenyan learners' life in education. In Estonia, it's a bit different.
How?
How so?
Of course, we support our children, and,
Yes,
and
yes,
me
yes.
as a mom want to be very involved. But we have had the understanding then that here, how actually the learner succeeds in the studies is actually a lot to do with the parents, how they can support their, because is it so that a lot is from the teachers, a lot is left for the parents to do?
We have an education system that has some demands on the parents, yes, that is true. But even beyond that, there is a simple thinking behind it. The education is perceived as the one thing that you can give to your child, and that will enable them to do things that perhaps the parents could not do in their time. So the focus on education, as you correctly put it, yes, Kenyan parents put a lot of emphasis and a lot of focus on the learning on their children. Now, the fundamental difference is perhaps the government of Estonia carries that burden.
Yeah.
And here is the parents that tend to share that burden with the government. That is putting it very politely. Yes.
I think that's coming out as one of the key things.
Yes.
The government has been talking about, digitizing and going digital in terms of our education system, has been making strides towards it, but probably it's what is required from them is more ownership.
Yes.
We have a lot of private sector players, which is good, who come into this space, such as your company and other startups that are in even Kenyan. But then there needs to be that proper coordination, so that then, just the same way the government has coordinated the entire publishing sector, so they know that you are the publishers, yes, we shall approve your books through KICD, and this is the material that shall go to schools. Same way that we are also going to have a digital stream, and this is how it shall be. People shall plug into it, and how then the learners shall get the material out of it. Thank you very much for joining us for this conversation. It's been an interesting one, getting the experience and context from Estonia. Anni Sild is the CEO of BCS Digital Skills Academy, and Antti Rammo is the founder and CEO of Star Cloud LLC. They've been our guests this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.